Hello and welcome back to More Than a Game, a podcast dedicated to the Premier League, the A-League and more. Today on the show, Hakim Ziyech's bag of tricks keeps Burnley buried at the bottom of the table. Diogo Jota ghosts off the bench and treats Liverpool to another clutch goal. A few clubs are getting a fright in the Champions League group stage, but nothing looks quite as spooky as the Premier League table after 7 match days. I'm Colby, and I'm joined today, back from the dead, aka moving house, is Jesse Farmer. Bit of freedom this weekend, mate. How you going?
Yeah, mate, it's been fantastic to actually get out of the house and have a coffee and some food and catch up with friends. So, as you know, it's only been a few days, so long may it continue.
And back in the House of Horrors, aka London, staring down the barrel of another lockdown. We've got George. You've just come from a quarantine and now back into lockdown. How's it all going, mate?
It hasn't been the best week because I'm officially finishing my quarantine today, and London's going into lockdown, I think, on Thursday. So I'm going to really make the most of this next 4 days, I think.
Make hay, get to the pubs while you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Stock up on toilet paper, stock up on beers, and happy days.
we all know the drill now, so
you know the drill. That's right.
Hopefully, it'll only be a month.
Just to clarify, we don't condone stockpiling TP on this pod, but just 6 packs and 12 packs, please.
No panic buying.
6 packs and 12 packs. If you can find a glitch in some online liquor store retailers' websites to get cheap beer, more power to you. And if you're listening to this on the podcast version and want to hear our match reviews sooner, then head over to our YouTube page and subscribe. And we've linked to that in the podcast notes. Otherwise, you can follow us on social media where we'll post links to the live shows before they happen, which is generally about a day or two before the pod gets uploaded. Boys, what stood out to you this week? Moments of the week, George.
I'm going to Spain for mine, and the return of Eden Hazard, fighting fit, scored a cracking goal for them in their win overnight, boys. Long distance goal, sharp turn. He's looking good. I think he's lost a bit of that puppy fat that he had over the summer, and it's good to see him back on the pitch.
Do we know if, in addition to the puppy fat that was on the front of FIFA 20, if he's managed to get rid of that monobrow that he also had on the front of FIFA 20? You want to take some tweezers to it and just pluck a few out there from him.
He just let himself go last year, Jesse. But I think this is the year for him. So watch out.
Yeah, I reckon ungroomed Hazard is a lot better than groomed Hazard. Like when he tries too hard, that's when the football starts to go out the window.
Yeah, stick to what you're good at: eating and banging goals in.
And what, Jesse, this weekend, what stood out to you?
It's awfully predictable, but I'm going to go to Nat Phillips for Liverpool, get him out of the match. 5th, 6th, 7th choice centre back against a very physical West Ham team, and he really held his own. And I know it wasn't a clean sheet, but arguably the goal wasn't his fault. So he's actually done a really good job for his first stand-in Premier League match. So. Congrats to him. I was also going to special mention to Zi-yech because I've been watching him closely, hoping to get back to full fitness and start to show us what he's made of, obviously having seen him perform for Ajax. And he's just, after seeing some of the momentum beginning in the Champions League during the week, he's up and running, well and truly up and running now. So it's good to see.
He's made a big difference. You can just that little bit of quality as well, because Pulisic got injured in the warm-up, so he kind of sort of stepped up from a creative perspective. So yeah, it's looking good.
Plenty of people saying he's giving Chelsea the edge. So yeah, plenty more chat about Hakim later on the show, boys. This week for me, moment of the week has to be our Mobile starting at Anfield in the Champions League for Midtjylland. It was a pretty routine win for Liverpool over Mobile's Midtjylland, but what a moment for an Aussie. 25-year-old, born in a Kenyan refugee camp, developed his football in Adelaide, and now, playing in the Champions League. Although, his team's probably not going to pick up too many points. It's just so good to see. The only thing that took away from it slightly was the commentators kept calling him our marble. They just need a few pronunciation tips there. But other than that, thrilled for him.
How did he go, Colby? I didn't actually see the game. Did he give Robbo a run for his money, or
he seemed to be getting marked by Minamino all the time. Minamino was just all over him, so
gave him a man marking brief.
Yeah, he just man. But I mean, none of the Michelin players really sort of, did any, shot the lights down at all. So, but yeah, it wasn't bad.
Very good.
But speaking of bad, George, while we're with you, what was your own goal for this week?
Going to the Champions League, boys, and the big game between Barcelona and Juventus, and just ex-Chelsea striker, ex-Real Madrid striker Alvaro Morata just couldn't take a trick with the 3 goals pulled for offside VAR, and all marginal as well. So they ended up losing the game 2-0, I think it was, and yeah, three VAR goals, and in a big game like that, it's pretty crazy. I don't think I've since VAR's come in had one guy cancelled out 3 goals for himself. So yeah, be pretty unlucky, pretty bad day for him at the office, but at least he's getting the chances. So that's one thing. But yeah, pretty bad day for old mate Alvaro.
Jesse, as a man who spends a lot of his playing time in Sunday League, camped out in an offside position, what do you think the impact on your game of VAR would be?
Well, I mean, one of the ones I enjoyed particularly of Morata was when he ran around behind the guy and put it in the net, knowing full well that it was actually physically impossible to be onside to score that goal.
Yeah.
But he couldn't help himself, and he buried it in the net. And if he hadn't have done it, then maybe he would have saved himself the heartache.
Well, they have to do that now. That's the directive to the players, is to put the ball in the back of the net, even if they know they're offside. And the directive to the officials is to keep the flag down until the player becomes active in the play. But so yeah, I guess the player just keeps going no matter what. He's just following the rules, boys. Playing on.
As long as the celebrations are as intense every time. That's because I do like to see that disappointment when the goal is cancelled, especially when it's not your team.
Yeah. Jesse, what about yourself, mate?
I couldn't find an own goal on the field or off the field in football, so I thought I'd just reference the Thai dinner we had on Friday night, where we basically didn't get served for 2.5 hours, and at one point it looked like the restaurant staff had just given up. And people started serving themselves from behind the bar and grabbing wine glasses, and sort of, it became a bit of a BYO everything. So shout out to Thai restaurants getting overrun with people this week.
Under new management. My own goal, that's a good segue, Jesse, because my own goal has to do with the EFL trophy being under new management in sponsorship terms. It's the Papa John's trophy, as it's now known.
Oh, wow.
Which sounds a bit like your uncle's old Div 4 futsal runners-up trophy, just collecting dust in the spare room. So this is the EFL's first foray into food sponsorship. Before that, they were very tradie focused, boys. They've had, as you might know, the leasing.com trophy, Check a Trade trophy.
Check a Trade, yeah.
The Johnston's Paint trophy, LDV Vans trophy, and my personal favourite, the Auto Windscreens Shield.
To be fair, though, Papa John's can still be an Italian construction agency.
I mean, I would have liked to see the Kazoo Cup.
The Kazoo Cup would be bad. But
yeah,
they're getting around. So, I mean, why not just sponsor one more thing? Or the Copper Avis, or maybe even the Hertz Jug. Could have been a good shout, I think, just continuing the theme.
We live on just as an aside, we live on top of a Papa John's here in London, so I might go down and speak to the staff and see if they're excited about the new sponsorship. Probably wouldn't
tickets, George. Free tickets for the pizza, surely.
I wouldn't be eating a pizza from there, but I'll try. I'll suss out the ticket situation.
All right. And before we get on to the match reviews in match day 7 of the Premier League today, boys, there's been plenty going on in only the 7 match days that we've had so far. After that, the table, as you can see, still looks pretty unusual, and so we've got a few listener questions in relation to it. First one is from Sal Talk Soccer on Twitter, asking, will the Premier League have any top 6 teams in the top 6 this season? currently only Liverpool and Chelsea feature in the top 6 from the traditional big 6. What do you think, boys?
I think the big thing that is people are taking into consideration this season, of course, is because of the lag from last season. The games are so condensed, and just when you thought the games couldn't get any more condensed, and somehow they are, and that's meaning that people are referring to November as the new December, and December as still December. So you've basically got a double Christmas period, and that's got to have an impact on all teams, but especially European teams. I don't envy the Europa League clubs on a Thursday night, but this is actually going to play into the hands of teams that don't have to do that. If you're an Aston Villa and you're up in that sort of area of the table right now, then where you usually peter off almost immediately, maybe they will stick around for a bit longer. So it does make that top 6 concept interesting, because the top 6 some members of the traditional top 6 might be doing well in Europe, but they might not be in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
George, any early shouts for some of the traditional top 6 to miss out this year?
Yeah, well, I think a couple, definitely the bottom few. I think sort of Liverpool and City will probably stay where they are in terms of their quality, unless they just get ravaged by injuries, which is I think is going to play more of a part this season. You've already seen Liverpool have been winning, but the Van Dijk thing will impact Liverpool in the long run, I think. So yeah, you've got sort of Everton at the moment, who don't have the distraction of Europe, I believe. So they're going to be one of those teams, as Jesse mentioned, that might be able to sneak in there. Wolves have sort of strengthened their squad a little bit as well, so they're a chance, and Leicester as well, who dropped off significantly last year, are also a chance. So yeah, I think it could be we could be going into a top 8 sort of scenario, boys, this year.
Yeah, it's still pretty wide open at the moment, isn't it? And we've heard a lot of this kind of shout about Spurs, but Lee Broxham Facts also on Twitter asks, can Spurs win the league? Pretty ambitious considering they're 7th at the moment, but they've been playing some pretty good football. What do we think, boys?
Not in the Europa League.
Antwerp aren't in the Premier League,
fortunately,
for Spurs.
You're not going to have that sort of quality. So
Spurs need to prove that they can't, or that they can overcome these little dips that they have at critical times. That's still yet to be seen. I mean, we can't read into the stage that we're at now. All we know is that they've got a very good squad, and they should be there or thereabouts near the end of the season. But can they grind out the results? The Burnley result was encouraging for them, because that's a game that maybe in the past that they wouldn't have won. But there's a long way to go for Spurs. They're going to hang on a bit longer than that.
And so, if you do have any questions, listeners, or comments, hit us up at mtagpodcast@gmail.com. Coming up next, Premier League Matchday 7. Right, boys, George is on the pod when we're kicking off the pod with Burnley and Chelsea. So Chelsea put 3 past Burnley at Turf Moor. Zi-yech started in his full debut, but the headline was another clean sheet. George, can Chelsea actually defend now?
I think they're. I don't know. I don't think we can answer that, because we've had some good wins against Krasnodar. We've had a good win against Burnley, but I think I was really surprised that Burnley didn't really go for it this whole game. So I mean, it's sort of. I think, yeah. I mean, you would have expected them to really bomb at Thiago Silva and long balls to pressure Mendy, Wood and Barnes, but they kind of didn't actually play it at all, and they sort of just sat back and let Chelsea dictate things. So I don't think it was a real test for Chelsea in the end, and also in the Champions League as well. But I think they're looking much more solid with Thiago Silva and Mendy, Chilwell fit, and you have Azpilicueta or Reece James on the right. So it looks much more solid, and Kante playing in a more strictly defensive midfield role. So I think
got a question for you, George. With Ramos and Real Madrid shitting themselves in Europe and Van Dijk out for the season, is Kurt Zouma the best centre back in world football?
He's the best goal scoring centre back in world football. I don't know about defensively, but put him in the opposition box. He's going to probably win a header, and it's a nice little release or release on the pressure when you can get your centre back up forward and get him scoring headers. So
just on
I'll
that
take it.
Thumping header. But did you see that Burnley had a guy on each post as well? So he's not only thumped that header past Nick Pope, but both defenders who are on the posts as well. So that's a bloody good header right there.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we should just give him the number 9 jersey. Why not?
I think Tammy would have something to say about that, wouldn't he?
Well, Tammy's got to get some goals.
Still getting on. Frank just
on.
looked like he just doubled up on all of his attacking lineup today, because he's like, I thought that Tammy and Werner were supposed to be the subs and Mount and Havertz were supposed to be the subs, and Frank's gone, no, I'll just play both pairs, just in a super attacking lineup.
The one thing I'd look out for the rest of the season is Werner playing off the left with Tammy up front, because it sort of takes the pressure off Werner a little bit, and you can play the ball to Tammy's feet and he can hold it up. So I think that might be something Frank will be looking at a little bit more often.
Do you like that though, George? Because it's that Werner can play there because he's a good player, and of course he can play in that position. But I personally I feel like you're actually handicapping the team by putting Tammy there in that sort of formation. You're not getting the best out of it. And also, when you've got all your best players fit, I don't think Tammy gets in the side.
You're probably right, but for some games, I think it's good. And Werner playing up front on his own every single game, twice a week, it's got to be taxing. And he actually was supposed to be on the bench to start this game. So I think it's something that'll be used sort of tactically, I think, going forward a bit more. But and also, the guy's played nearly every minute of every game 2 times a week since he joined, basically. So he's going to get gassed pretty quickly, I would have thought, because Frank doesn't usually take him off either. So I think it's going to be a useful little tactic, and against teams like Burnley, it worked a treat.
Well, if there's one thing Chelsea have got plenty of, George, it's attacking options. And we saw that today with Zi-yech making his full Premier League debut, grabbing a goal and an assist. And I read a headline in the Mirror this week. Frank Lampard confident that Hakim Ziyech can become Eden Hazard's successor. What do you think about this? Because I thought Pulisic or Callum Hudson-Odoi or others were going to be the successor to Hazard.
Well, I think he's got the quality. He's 20. So, I mean, let's not put pressure on these like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds to carry the team. Zi-yech is 27. He's at the peak of his powers. He looks like he's slotted in pretty nicely. He's got experience playing in Europe. He can handle it. So, I mean, for the next few seasons, give him the ball and let's see what he can do. I think he's world class personally. So
he's such a Marius-like player, isn't he? He's got the touch.
Drop out of the stream here.
Lost his photo.
Is he in yours, George?
I've lost his picture.
Yeah, I've lost him as well.
Oh, yeah. He's now off.
Yeah, my network just fully dropped out before, so I had to connect to another thing.
Oh yeah.
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 I'll just tell Jesse to log back in.
Oh, here we go.
I could hear and see you guys the whole time, but I had to log out.
Yeah, I think that was all caused by my network dropout. But I'm back now, so hopefully we're good. This will be fun to edit on the podcast, and if anyone like watches this on the YouTube recorded version, it's gonna be pretty good watch. But George, you're just saying that you think Ziyech's world class already.
I do. I believe it. He's quality.
I was going to say before you cut out as well, George.
His passing is so underrated. He can really break the lines with his passing, and he's obviously got an eye for goal. So I think he's built for the Premier League.
Looks like little Mahrez, Jesse.
I reckon he's got a Mahrez-like play to him. He's just so silky, and he's obviously left-footed as well. So.
Yeah, he's got a lot of little tricks. But why don't we talk about Burnley briefly, Jesse? bottom of the table, 1 point. What's going wrong there? Is this Chris Wood not firing, or what's happening?
Whole team's not firing. I mean, Barnes, who's only just recently returned, taken a shot from a very speculative position as one of the few chances of the game, pretty much sums it up for Burnley. Like, they're just not clicking. And this is not unusual for them. I mean, we talk about them being in a critical position pretty much every year. And then somehow they pull it back in the second half of the season and are comfortably out of the drop zone. So I think they're going to get relegated every year, and they somehow pull it out of the bag. So this seems to be following the general and usual trend for Burnley. They always start pretty poorly.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that Burnley can pull it out as well.
Yeah, I think that in listening to Sean Dyche after the game, he was sort of saying, well, not this game, because they were awful, but in the past few losses where they've lost, specifically the Spurs game, he said all the stats indicate that they're going to start scoring goals. They're doing everything that they're sort of supposed to do, and if you think back to that Spurs game, Harry Kane cleared one off the line and sort of set up that the lucky kind of goal for Son from the corner. So otherwise it could have gone a completely different way. So I think Burnley will be okay in the end. But yeah, as I said, that the performance against Chelsea was really bad.
Why don't we move on to marginally less bad performances, boys? Liverpool and West Ham. So Liverpool have now made it a club, I think it's 63 games undefeated at Anfield. Despite going that goal down early after that poor Gomez clearance, they got the job done with that Salah penalty and substitutes Shaqiri and Jota combining for that late winner. Sal Talk Soccer on Twitter asks Jesse, Liverpool barely scraping by?
Yeah, to some degree they are. Like, I don't think anybody's under any illusion that they're playing anywhere near their capacity. And I mean, yeah, sure, the easiest way to tackle that is to say that they're out with so many injuries and it's disruptive and all that sort of thing. But one of the things that I am encouraged by is that somehow they're still getting results, and that's just something that we associated with them last year. I don't think they actually played amazingly well for periods last year, and they still managed to get results, and similar results to this, where they were 1-0 down. They've gone 1-0 down at home a remarkable amount of times in this winning run, and basically come back just to win 2-1 or 3-1. So, yeah, I don't think they're playing anywhere near to their capacity, but I mean, a lot of that could be put down to the fact that the team's a combination of injuries, but I also think Klopp's slowly tinkering with the formation. And seeing how he can get Jota into this team. And obviously he's getting Shaqiri off the bench a bit more often now too. So it seems like it could almost be a strategic thing too, that they're just adjusting to a new strategy.
Yeah. Do any of us think that was a penalty?
Look, I'm not going to deny that I'm not going to deny that it's ugly when players throw themselves to the ground, and I'm not that one-eyed that I'll think that's a good thing. I don't like that from any player, but Masuaku shouldn't be just kicking him in the box.
The commentators kept saying how guilty Masuaku looked. So I think
he did look guilty.
I think Masuaku actually sold it more than Salah. Salah didn't need to do anything.
Salah went down pretty hard for a very, very minimal touch. But yeah, it was a bit of a strange decision from Masuaku with like a minute to go in the half when they're in the lead and sort of holding on pretty okay and pretty comfortably. So it really
was an odd decision by Masuaku, and I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's like the Fabinho one, a week ago or a week or two ago, whatever it was. Like, it's a very line ball call, but you just don't sort of make that decision when you're a defender in the box, and you could apply the same thing to Masuaku. You just don't do that when you're a defender in the box, because you give the attacker an opportunity to do that. But boys, what did we think about the other incident in the game, the disallowed goal with Ogbonna and Mane charging in and having that first Jota goal disallowed? Was there much in that, do you think?
I think because Mane took down Ogbonna in the slide and then Ogbonna couldn't get up, I think they had to call it a foul. I think if Ogbonna didn't go down and he just sort of slid into the keeper, Fabianski, I think they probably would have let it go because Jota would have probably scored anyway. But I think just because he took the defender down and he couldn't make the second challenge, then it was probably a fair one, I thought. But it was an interesting one, like a lot of permutations and a lot of well, if he got up and he could have got this. So I think ultimately they got it right. But it was a tight one.
It's interesting when you listen to it, depending on which commentators you listen to it, because I mean, I don't know who you had at your end, George, but we had Peter Drury and Jim Beglin for this one, and they were just focusing on the offside and was Jota onside, and was he put onside by the fact that Ogbonna had touched it, and then the discussion changed to could you adjudicate and say that was a deliberate touch from him, or was he just shielding the ball, and then finally, it sort of got to a conversation about Mane fouling Ogbonna. Whereas,
right.
The very first thing I saw when I watched it is I thought instinctively, I didn't think it was a goal because I thought Mane had committed a foul, not necessarily on Ogbonna, but on the keeper.
Yeah, I originally thought the keeper as well, but that's
what I thought.
So it was a strange one. It was a strange one, but I think ultimately the right decision. So
yeah.
And Jesse, just on Diogo Jota. Has he got to start going forward?
You mean Diogo?
Diogo.
Or Diogo Maradona, as we're starting to call him. It's brilliant to see a player hit the ground running. I mean, we've just been talking about how promising Zi-yech looks after a couple of games. That's all you want when you get a player coming to the club who's got a good reputation. Is a lot of players that they've come into our club, like Keita and Minamino, have really struggled to hit the ground running at the same speed as they have in other teams, and you sort of get annoyed and you worry: is it them? Is it our system? Well, Jota just seems to have just slotted into our system seamlessly, and it's just great to see because he's the one stepping up in these games where Mane and Salah might not necessarily be in the position. He's in the position, and I mean. Jota aside, let's just put some respect on that Shaqiri pass because that was absolutely
who was the
delicious.
defender that just opened his legs up?
It was just absolutely delicious. I mean, I'd open my legs up to that pass.
Do you know what? That pass from Shaqiri to Jota. If you go back and watch the highlights for the Michelin Champions League game, that pass that Shaqiri to Jota was just a better version of what they did against Michelin. It was the exact same play. So it looks like something they've been working on in the training grounds or something like that.
Backspin on it.
Oh my goodness!
Now, boys,
on that pass.
How flat would you be as a defender if the front three was Jota, Mane, and Salah? Just it'd never giving you any chance to rest, would they?
Yeah, and Jota's actually can press quite well, and I know you've talked about this before, Jesse, on the pod. He's. I mean. If anyone's dropping out of that front three, it's Firmino, and if anyone has shown the ability to sort of play in that pressing role, it's Jota, and what he adds in terms of his tactical and positional flexibility. It looks like he could really slot straight in there.
I love players that just run and just have, like, obviously we love watching Traore for Wolves and those sort of players that just back themselves. And the thing I like about Jota is that we have played so much side-to-side football in the last few weeks. It's pretty hard to watch at times. It's just side to side to side to side to the fullbacks, and you have to be very patient to watch it. But sometimes when Jota comes on, his directive is just to go. And there was one run last night. It was actually the lead up to the disallowed goal where he must have run from the halfway line and he had options on either side, but he just decided to just run to see how long it would take till the West Ham defenders would commit. And it's just exhilarating to watch. It's actually more like what Salah was like when he first came to the club, just backed himself to beat people on the outside. So, yeah, it's exciting to watch him, and it's going to do him a world of good considering that he's just started playing for Portugal as well. So he's starting to represent his country as well.
Yeah, and 23, he's got a big career ahead of him and a pretty high ceiling. So will be one to watch. Jesse, just before we move on, just wanted to get your thoughts. Obviously, Liverpool have just come off back to the midweek Champions League game, and they're going off to play another one. And we've had early international breaks. Well, what's this doing to the players during this period of COVID and sort of the increased numbers that we're seeing in Europe? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a person who avidly listens to this pod, even when I'm not on it, I remember somebody mentioning last week that they always love a good rant from me about the international break, and yeah, I will bite. I fucking hate the international break, and I hate it at the best of times, but I can kind of understand if you're qualifying for the Euros or something. All teams have qualified for the Euros. All we're playing for now is the stupid fucking Nations League, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we've done really well to create these bubbles within our countries and to keep games alive. And now that you've got countries like the UK and others going into lockdown, football is going to be what gets you through. And you jeopardize that by getting people to fly back to their home countries in the middle of a season under questionable medical quarantine. Like basically, you don't have control.
They can't quarantine. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't have any control over what happens at their end. It's those footballing bodies that are in control of that. So you've lost your visibility on what's going on. So I just think it's just ridiculous that we've got that happening. I mean, where it's hairy enough playing Champions League and Europa League where you have to fly in and fly out at the same time, basically wearing your boots. It's hairy enough doing that, let alone the stupid international break. So it can go get fucked as far as I'm concerned.
That's exactly what I wanted.
I did hear a theory that with all cities in lockdown, it actually will be safer for the footballers because they don't have to interact with anyone outside of the football bubble. So maybe there'll be less.
Certain players on internationals people outside of the bubble. So
are you ruling out Icelandic Instagram influencers?
They're in the bubble, surely.
Surely they get an exception.
They do. I mean, key workers, boys. Key workers.
Manchester City boys were made to work at Bramall Lane with a goal from Sheffield old boy Kyle Walker giving City the points in this one. Sheffield now just 1 point from 7 games and over 7 hours without a goal at Bramall Lane. We spoke about Burnley just before, us having confidence that Deitch would get it together. And we've spoken already this season about Sheffield and our faith in Chris Wilder. Is the faith still there, Jesse?
Well, I mean, I just want to just take you back a step and just sort of talk about COVID exceptions to people coming over to your house. And it was a great segue to Kyle Walker. Going back to Sheffield, I mean, similar story in a way to what's going on with Burnley, where the coach is actually sort of looking at the results and thinking we could be getting more out of this. But I think what was different about this result, particularly because they're playing against such an attacking team like City, is that I think it was about 40 minutes in and Ramsdale's palms were just stinging. He was just copping it left, right, and centre. It's not one of those games where you could say, on the balance of play, both teams had their chances. It wasn't until Lundstrom actually had a go in the second half, and
he was on the bench. So that's an interesting one from Wilder. Just because obviously he's not signing a new contract, so it seemed like a bit of punishment because of that. And then he had to bring him on because they couldn't mount any attack, and then he had that shot in the second half. So
no, it's not enough. Not enough from them at this level, but in saying that they have played against a couple of teams in the last couple of weeks, which you wouldn't expect them to beat. No one would have expected them to necessarily beat City last night. So the real test is now, and is can they actually start beating some of the teams they should beat? Because, I mean, I think the one result that would have hurt them in recent times would be the loss to to Leeds at home. Yeah, that hurts.
And Brewster watch, boys, what did we think?
It's not really up to much at the moment, is he, Colby?
Yeah.
He didn't really have a lot of chances.
There was that one, yeah.
So. But I mean, he did a little bit more than the other game that he's featured in. But yeah, maybe slowly, and he'll settle into what Wilder wants him to do, which is
what's going to happen first. Is Damo going to go into an absolute meltdown, or is Brewster going to score? Because it's neck and neck at the moment. I reckon probably Damo goes into meltdown before Brewster gets that goal. He's on notice.
That's not a bad shout. And just, I mean, we last season talked a lot about Sheffield's overlapping centre backs, but boys, I want to talk about some City tactics. I've been noticing in a few of their games recently, their wing backs have been sort of tucking in. They've got inverted wing backs, boys. Have you noticed this with the likes of Kyle Walker and now Joao Cancelo getting into those sort of central positions as well? What do we think about that?
Well, Kyle Walker was going on in interviews about how his sort of role has slightly changed. He's no longer a right back per se. He sort of sometimes plays that third centre back, and then the tucked in defender. So I agree with you there, Colby. Pep's doing a few things, and he has to, because I think without Aguero, there's still sort of, if Aguero was playing, I think they probably would have won 3-4-0. But now they're only winning 1-0. They're creating a lot of chances, but Sterling can be hit and miss sometimes. I know he scores a lot of goals, but he still sort of often requires a lot of chances to score. So yeah, Pep's trying a few things for sure.
Well, the other thing that's been suggested for City in terms of their goal scoring ability, especially with Aguero and Gabby Jesus injured, it comes from John on Twitter. He just pointed out that Micah Richards has suggested that Man City should look at Daniel Sturridge as a short-term fix for their centre forward woes. Jesse, what do you think about this?
Well, I've got a very rich IPA that I'm drinking, and it's hard to tell if it's a little bit of reflux from that or it's just generally vomit that I just got. Sturridge playing for City again would be disgusting.
Get Sturridge back. Get him back.
It would be disgusting. I reckon they'd be better to pick up maybe Sebastian Aller from West Ham or something. Maybe someone who's unproven. Although sorry, actually, no. Pep exclusively signs players that are already proven. Sorry.
I actually think
I don't mind that little drive-by about Haller there, because he was dog shit. He was dog shit.
He was anonymous, absolutely anonymous for West Ham this week. Yeah, if we can go back to that. I actually think that Sturridge would suit City insofar as they're just a team full of glass cannons, injury-prone glass cannons. So, I mean, he'd fit right into that mold, that's for sure. But just before we do move on, I think the most important question about this game has to be, boys, what is up with all of the teams' warm-up trackies this season? Like, have a look at these. We've got some up in the in the broadcast for anyone that's listening on the podcast version. But like some of these are shocking. I know we have Kit Chat from time to time, but these, the Sheffield and Man City warm-up tops were just absolutely shocking.
Yeah, that's disgusting. And the Sheffield one looks like an apron. So it's a waiter. It's a waiter.
If we put our sort of capitalist hats on, boys, it's just a pure grab for another revenue stream. I think with the no crowds, they're just trying to take in a little bit more money. And if that is the focus, then maybe they should spend a bit more time on the designs.
But if I was putting my capitalist hats on, I would just make them good.
Yeah, exactly.
If I wanted them to sell,
they've only done half the job, Cole. They've only done half. They've rushed them out.
Okay, boys. Final game of the weekend so far. Wolves and Crystal Palace. So Wolves have moved up into third spot now with a pretty regulation win over Palace. It's their best start to a top flight season since 79-80. So a long time since Wolves.
How did they go in that year, Cole?
7 match days. Couldn't tell you. But what I can say is that after 7 match days in 79, they were at least third. So
like it.
Make of that what you will. And we can have a full report on that season in a future pod for those interested. But they do look to be building a bit of depth. Jesse, I know you said this before. You had young Ait Nouri, the 19-year-old wingback from Angers, scoring his first goal on debut, which was pretty nicely taken little goal into the ground as well. Boys, what do you make of Wolves, George?
Yeah, I think they've done well to integrate. Podence started playing in from the restart, so I think he's been a real good inclusion, and Neto as well, who's been playing alongside Jimenez. So I think that's actually worked, and you're seeing less and less of Traore, which is interesting, because you wouldn't have thought that would have been the case, and they've managed to replace Jota on the run, which is pretty good, and they're pretty impressive. I think as long as Jimenez stays, they're always going to be in games, because he can, as we've seen in the last few weeks, he can come up with goals out of nothing. So pretty impressive.
There's something got to be going on with the Traore situation, because you can't be basically the best player for your club last season and then just basically fall into the back. Like people talking about how he was going to have to play deep because they'd lost Doherty, but they'd always lined up another replacement like Semedo.
Semedo's come in and he can do that too. Yeah.
I don't really understand why they've got Traore coming on in games in the 75th minute. I mean, he's moved past that as a player as far as his value, surely. So there's got to be something happening on the training pitch where Nuno's not happy with what he's seen, so he's not getting the start.
Yeah, whether he's... Well, go on. Sorry, Cole.
I was just going to say that they've not only replaced Traore and Doherty, as you say, boys, but they've replaced Johnny, who was injured as well. Like they've got like two basically starting quality wing backs now as well, in addition to sort of filling in that Jota spot with Perence, all happening pretty seamlessly for a team that has been so settled. And basically they were one of the teams in the past couple of seasons that had the fewest changes to them, to come out and just have that kind of depth and have these changes happen so seamlessly is a real credit to Nuno.
Points in the bank, though. This is something I've been sort of going on and on about last couple of weeks, is that any points you get at the stage of the season are going to be vital for these 3 or 4 Decembers that we've been talking about that are coming up. Wolves are going to be under the pump in the next month because they're playing. I think their fixture schedule turns is quite harsh coming up, so they need to win these games, particularly at home against Palace and those sort of teams, because they're going to need those points in the bank.
Yeah, all credit goes to Nuno. So he's just keep on rolling, Wolves. Keep on rolling.
And boys, there's still quite a few games to go in this match day. We've got Leeds, Leicester, Fulham, West Brom, Spurs, Brighton, United, Arsenal, which at least on paper stands to be the big one. Newcastle, Everton, and Villa, Southampton. What will you be watching, George?
I'll definitely be watching. I think Leeds and Leicester, and I think that'll be pretty exciting game. I'll bank on some goals in that one, boys. I think there should be some goals in that one. And then obviously the battle of the former greats, Arteta v Solskjaer. Although I did hear an interesting theory about the Man U Arsenal game, which was like both teams seem to really like to counter-attack. So what the hell are they going to do when they're playing against each other? Because are they just going to be
standing in their own half?
Yeah. No one wants to take the kick off. No one wants to take the kick.
It's the Spider-Man gif.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm not predicting too many goals for that one, boys. Yeah, because Arsenal have been quite defensive by their own standards recently, and and United seem to just be getting all of their goals out of the system midweek. So surely they don't have too many more to come.
Surely they're putting all their eggs in the Champions League basket to try and win it.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I think those two are the games. What about you, boys? I know it's a long. Is it a lot? Are you guys having the Monday off, or I know there's a bit of the Melbourne Cup vibe in back home.
I've taken it off. George.
Nice.
So I'll be watching a couple of the fixtures tonight. I'm interested to see how Villa go against Southampton, because Villa, everyone last week was talking about them like the Galacticos, but they've finally shown that they're human with hat-trick Bamford taking them down last week. So, I reckon it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. One of the things we noticed last week was that Grealish, they all looked a bit shell-shocked going down against Leeds, and they didn't really react to the adversity of going down very well. They've sort of had everything their way up until that point. So I'll be interested to see how they go against Southampton, who just look like they could just pull any result out of the bag. They are either awful or they're fantastic.
you probably know they're going to lose from the 10th minute, or whether they're going to win or not. But yeah,
exactly. And Newcastle, Everton as well. Newcastle just keep. I don't know. I just don't know how they keep doing it, but they keep managing to find results. And Everton look a little depleted if James doesn't start, which we're talking about off air. Colbs, is Ancelotti telling the truth this week?
I don't trust him. Don't trust him. I think I would not be surprised to see James either on the bench or in the starting lineup based on past performance. I've been burned before by Ancelotti.
Do we think? Just as on that, do we back Everton to win? Back Everton to win big games without James, or not saying this is an absolute massive game, but he seems so critical to them already. He's only been there a few weeks, and it seems like
the stat that's actually going around, boys, is that Everton haven't won a game without Richarlison in the team since Richarlison came over from Watford. So that's actually the big one coming around, that the big hoodoo that they're looking to shake. So
wow, there you go.
That's one to watch, because Richarlison won't be featuring in this game on suspension still. So
Richarlison is like the equivalent for Everton. He plays in that sort of position where Mane plays, and then you've got Dean who plays in that position that Robertson plays. So when you take out the equivalent of Mane, it really just throws Dean, and then Dean's not even playing this week. So that's going to hurt, because I mean, if you had James out but you still had Luka Dean, you'd think that they could still get some crosses in the box.
Delivery, yeah.
When you have both of them out the same week, I mean, who's going to whip them in?
Calvert-Lewin may as well not show up.
He's just standing there, just
a false nine. Yeah. Is Coleman even playing this week? That was the other thing, because I thought Coleman was also under an injury cloud. But geez, they'll have no.
He is too.
Yeah.
Okay, boys. Well, that's probably going to do it for Premier League for this podcast. Still to come, Champions League group stage match day 2. All right, boys. Champions League. So this week, plenty of action. 4 of the Premier League teams scored an aggregate of 14 goals to 0 this week, which is pretty massive for English teams, especially given the recent performances. Boys, what fixture out of this sort of week's match day caught your eye, George?
I think the Man U result, the Leipzig, was a bit of a shock for mine. I know they were sort of it was a lot of the goals came after the 75th minute, essentially, from Rashford's hat trick, the 74th, 78th, and the 92nd, and Martial's the 87th minute. But to beat Leipzig 5-0 is pretty impressive, and Man U are top of their group, ahead of PSG and Leipzig. So I think at the start when the draw was made, you kind of thought Man U might even slip in third, but they look like with the 2 wins against the 2 big rivals, it's pretty impressive.
I can really empathise with Leipzig, because I've recently purchased FIFA 21, and if you've tried to defend in that game, you'll understand pretty quickly that the minute that you try and play any kind of football, you're down 5-0 almost immediately. So I'm kind of stuck in Div 3 and not really going any further at this point in FIFA 21, because some little 12-year-old in Brazil's just smacking in goals. So there's certainly some crossovers there. But I think Tommy raised a good point early in the week. He was talking about, are these teams that actually have a go the ones that Man U and that sort of excel against, because they can actually get behind them and they're exposed. Well, yes, and when you've got a player like Rashford, who's just, when he's at his best, is so clinical. I think that you might be right, Colbs. They might have used all their goals up midweek, but I fancy Rashford at the moment. He looks like a man in form.
And Jesse, which game stood out to you this week?
I watched the Liverpool one the most closely, obviously, and I noticed obviously the Chelsea result too, which would have been you would have been a happy man with that, George. So
yeah, I wasn't. They rolled out that third kit again, so my eyes are still recovering from that.
I think mainly because I was watching the same group. The Ajax giving up 2 goals was quite significant. It could prove to be very significant at the end of it at that group because, they were 2-0 away from home against Atalanta and ended up drawing 2-2. And what will that mean at the end of the group? It'd be very interesting to see if that point is the difference for one of those teams.
Yeah, we will get your predictions on who's going to go through or not to the round of 16 in a minute, boys. No particular game really stood out to me this week. Obviously, there are a few interesting results. I actually thought the City Marseille game, some of the defending from Marseille, there was a bloke for Marseille in the first goal that City scored, and this is the biggest case of traffic cone defending I think I've seen in a very, very long time in the Champions League or a top quality football competition. So that stood out to me as I guess a moment in a game, but also a couple of the European stadiums that had fans in them stood out to me as well. So like a really different vibe.
Yeah,
we're getting so used to watching these games with no fans and crowd noise, or you can just hear like Lampard swearing on the sidelines or something like that, and to have these games in the Champions League where there looks like there's 10 or 20,000 people in the stadium is just crazy.
I actually had a funny thought while watching the Krasnodar Chelsea game. So obviously in Russia, but if you had a look at the image of the actual pitch, it dead set looked like Amy Park. Like it's got the same green seats and the same sort of distance between the seats and the ground. It was. I was doing a double take. There were fans as well, actually, but yeah, really. If you
it's different from Amy Park then.
Yeah.
Mate, unless there was any empty cup with a slight bit of Great Northern 0.5% residue in it.
How many seagulls were there at Krasnodar?
Yeah, I walked into that one.
And boys, just looking ahead though, what are you looking forward to for next week? Because obviously the matches in the group stage are still coming through thick and fast with match day 3 coming up next week. George, what are you looking forward to next week?
Just having a quick look at the fixtures. I think that you've got Atalanta and Liverpool. I think which is going to be a pretty exciting game, given how Atalanta attack and Liverpool attack. So there should be some goals in that one. Boys, I don't know how comfortable you are facing Atalanta, but they've looked like they've been informed the last few months since the restart as well.
Yep. Good point. I think Real Madrid Inter, it could be spicy.
And if you have a look at their group at the moment, so you've got Shakhtar leading the group on 4 points. Borussia Mönchengladbach, who got the draw against Real Madrid on 2, Inter on 2, and Real Madrid on 1. So it's almost like a must-win for Real Madrid already.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing. Dortmund's in that 3rd position as well.
A few of the group, boys. We've just got that up on the screen now. A few of the groups looking a bit interesting. In particular, Group B with Real Madrid after 2 match days sitting in last on 1 point, and then you've got Inter in 3rd with 2 points. So, as you said, Jesse, that match between Inter and Real Madrid, yeah, very, very spicy.
Group H should be good if Leipzig could decide not to be a doormat next time. I mean, that had all the makings of a great group. But yeah,
Man U running away with it.
And boys, which team do you think is going to be a surprise pack to go through, George?
Oh, good question, Colby. I think you've got to say at the moment. I think Atalanta going in ahead of Ajax. I would actually say. I don't know if that's too much of a surprise, but I would say they're odds on to get out of that group along with Liverpool.
I wonder if Lazio might sneak through. I know that seems a bit strange considering that Dortmund should jump above Club Brugge, but I think when was the last time we saw Lazio through to the knockout stages.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. Immobile's just in serious form, so I think with him firing, that they should get through.
And teams that won't go through, boys, what are we thinking? Obviously, Real Madrid come to mind in last position. Can they peg it back?
I think, yeah. I mean, if just pulling their group up again, but like if Shakhtar are going to get through, then it's one of Real Madrid or Inter that are not going to make it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that the pressure it would be interesting to see what happens if Inter don't make it. Then the pressure is just going to mount on Conte again because of another failure in Champions League. And if Real Madrid don't make it, then all hell will break loose. So.
Well, we've got a question on that, boys. Joshua Watson on Twitter asks, is Zidane under pressure after 2 disappointing games in the Champions League? So he's not even contemplating at the moment that Madrid won't go through. But what do you think the pressure would be like at the moment on Zidane?
He could be Zidane after the group's completed, that's for sure. Yeah, you can't. I mean, as much of a legend as he is, you can't get knocked out with that group and get away with it when it comes to that club. They're about as unforgiving as you get.
Well, I mean, because they won the Clasico, it sort of got sort of staved the Wolves off a little bit in terms of the pressure. But yeah, they'll just come straight back if they don't qualify. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're one of those clubs, aren't they? And for good reason. Their fans and their owners expect them to win everything. And if they're not even going through to the round of 16 and the likes of Mönchengladbach and Shakhtar Donetsk are going through ahead of them, it's it's gonna be trouble for Zidane, I think. And maybe it's just a bald fraud, boys.
One of many.
Match day 3 of the Champions League group stage will continue on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and we'll, of course, be covering it on the podcast. Thanks again for listening, everybody. If you've enjoyed the show today, we'd love it if you could give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's not only great to know what you think of the pod, but also helps us get found ahead of that weird basketball podcast that stopped doing EPs back in 2015. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video version of this pod, which drops about a day before the pod comes out. Links to all of those are in the show notes. Next week, match day 8. Until then, enjoy the football.